There are periods when you win one trade, only to lose two right after. Your account doesn't blow up, but it bleeds every single day. You change strategies, you change time frames, you change indicators, yet the more you try to fix it, the deeper you sink. I've been exactly there, and what made me stop wasn't a new setup, but the decision to stop trading. I once believed that if you wanted to live off trading, you had to trade constantly, watch the price screen every hour, enter and exit non-stop like a machine that never rests. Then I met him, a quiet teacher living beside a small lake, with an old laptop and a journal yellowed by time. He spoke very little, but once I saw him place a trade with my own eyes. Just a single trade, after nearly 3 months of not touching the market at all. A few days later, his account had doubled. At that moment, he said only one sentence: "Don't fight the market. Wait until it opens the door and invites you in." From that day on, the way I traded was no longer the same. I learned to be quieter, to wait longer, and to act only when the market truly revealed its cards. It was summer then, almost 7 years ago. I was trapped in a long losing streak. Almost every day, I turned on my computer early in the morning, glued my eyes to the charts, and fired off trades relentlessly. Back then, not trading felt like missing out on life itself. So I asked my teacher, "The market is full of opportunities. Why don't you trade? Why let everything pass by?" He didn't answer. He simply pulled me closer and opened an old chart from 3 years earlier, showing a consolidation zone that lasted nearly 3 months. He zoomed in and pointed to a single breakout candle. Then he said, "Right here. I waited 3 months. I took only one trade here, and the money I made was enough for me to live comfortably for the next 12 months. I looked at the chart. A very clear breakout, exploding volume, every major resistance completely broken. But if it were me back then, I would have entered far too early and almost certainly been shaken out before the market truly moved. He wasn't like that. He waited for confirmation from the market. No guessing, no anticipation, no hope. Only when real institutional money showed up did he act. And he emphasized one thing: a trader who can survive doesn't need to know countless setups, just one strike, clean enough at the right moment without hesitation. I stayed silent. For the first time, I saw a trader who didn't need to constantly fight, yet lived in calm. And for the first time, I understood. Trading is not a race to enter trades. It is the art of waiting until the market speaks for itself. This is the moment. After that, I no longer traded like a moth drawn to the flame. I began observing again, not the charts, but myself. Why was I always in such a hurry? Why was I afraid of missing out? Why did I believe I had to trade constantly to make money? Every time I recall the image of him sitting still for 3 months, then pointing to a single spot and striking with the precision of a sword, I realized how inexperienced I still was back then. And from that moment on, I began to write down every word he said, every way he read candles, every way he looked at volume, as if he were listening to the heartbeat of the market. I gathered it all, pieced it together into lessons, into small stories, and called it the trading manual my teacher left behind. If you've never watched those videos, I sincerely suggest you go back and listen to them slowly, one episode at a time. Because what I share here is not theory taken from textbooks. It is lived experience, lessons I paid a very high price to understand. And if today I tell you that a single setup can sustain a trader for an entire year, that is not about glorifying any strategy. It is simply the truth. A truth that took me many years to become quiet enough to touch. In my early days in the market, I believed I always had to be doing something. My hands couldn't stop, my eyes couldn't leave the screen. I chased every wave, every tremor, every piece of news in the middle of the night. I believed that the harder I worked, the more I traded, the closer I was to freedom. But reality was the opposite. I was overtrading. Every win made me feel smarter than everyone else. Every loss pushed me to recover, to justify, to invent reasons for bad trades. Then I entered another trade, and another, until even I no longer understood what I was doing. My teacher once said that the reason people lose in trading is not because they're incompetent, but because they don't know how to stop when it's time to stop. They cannot sit still. And he was right, because I was once exactly like that, and so are many people out there right now. Trading gradually becomes a way to release emotions, a way to escape the pressure of real life. They don't enter trades because they see opportunity, but because they don't know what else to do. Trading stops being a profession and turns into a dopamine hit, an addiction, like gambling, like games of chance, like a loop with no exit. And what is the result? Losses from having no plan, losses from drawing charts with emotion, losses from not knowing when to stop, when to go big, and when to step away from the screen. The harder they try, the deeper they sink. The more they trade, the more they're lost. Eventually, they return to the starting point, but this time with a smaller account and a heart carrying even more scars. I understand that feeling. And if you're listening to these words today, perhaps you've seen yourself somewhere in these stories. There was a time I asked myself why I kept losing despite trying so hard. I took every course, read every book, analyzed every indicator, yet my account kept falling. Then I realized that some things are not found in books. Some lessons cannot be taught in any classroom. They must be paid for, walked through alone, and understood in silence. I didn't lose because I lacked knowledge. I lost because I was too easily pulled by the market, pulled by fear, by greed, by ego, and a loneliness few dared to talk about. And that is precisely why I began making these videos.
I'm not doing this to teach you how to become the best trader in the world, nor is it to show off trades, show off money, or play the hero behind a screen. I do it as a way to slow down, to sit back, like on a calm evening, making a cup of hot tea, and you stop by to sit beside me. We simply talk about the market, about psychology, about the things few people are willing to say while they're still struggling between red and green candles. You may not remember everything I say, but perhaps just one sentence, one small idea will quietly echo in your mind, stay with you, and take root on the days you feel most lost. Because if you stay in trading long enough, you will come to understand it is not a race of knowledge. It is a journey of learning to master your emotions and to see yourself clearly. And if these videos can help you keep even a little clarity, a little stillness in the middle of the market storm, then for me, that is enough. My teacher once said, "Don't try to control the market. Learn to recognize the moment when it reveals its cards." At the time, I didn't understand, until one day he opened the Euro-USD chart, a price range moving sideways for nearly 2 months. Small candles, thin volume, nothing remarkable. Yet every day he opened it, as if he were listening to the market whisper. Then one morning, a single strong breakout candle appeared. Long body, explosive volume. He said nothing, he simply placed the trade. No trembling hands, no hesitation, no guessing. 2 weeks later, the market moved more than 400 pips in one clean run. I asked him how he knew this breakout could be trusted. He answered, because the market had been silent for too long, and large money never stays silent forever. That was the only setup he traded year after year. He didn't need many methods, just one pattern at the exact moment when the market truly spoke. The setup was simple, a tight consolidation zone, low volume, no major volatility. Then came the breakout session, a long-bodied candle breaking the range, accompanied by an abnormal surge in volume. After the breakout, he didn't enter immediately. He waited for a clear pullback, and only then did he commit capital. One move, one trade, a strike like the sword of someone who has trained for 10 years. No need for 3 or 4 screens, no tangled signals, just patience and the right moment. Some people say that means you might not take a trade for an entire month. I only smile, because that is exactly the line between trading to survive and trading for entertainment. For me, a good trade is not the one that makes the most money. It is the one that leaves no regret, no frustration from rushing, no remorse from entering wrong, no self-blame for being dragged by emotion. And from the day I understood this setup, I began trading less. Paradoxically, I started earning more. Not because I became better, but because I learned when to stay still. Once, I asked him why he didn't enter a little earlier. If we entered sooner, we'd get a better price, a bigger gain. He looked at me and said slowly, "A good price is not for the impatient. The skilled trader is not the one who enters first, but the one who enters at the right time." It sounds very simple, but it took me a long time to fully understand that sentence. For a period, I was always hunting for the perfect entry, always trying to predict the market, always believing that if I would just a little faster, a little more accurate, I would make more money. But the market has never been a game for quick hands. It is a game for those who know how to wait and how to listen. Each candle is like a breath. Each price zone is a silent conversation. Only those with enough patience can feel the moment when capital begins to shift. My teacher often compared the market to a lake. Most of the time, it is still, like a mirror. But if you watch long enough, you will notice moments when the surface gently ripples, a leaf trembles, the air seems to change direction. That is when the undercurrent is turning, and those who have watched long enough will know a larger wave is coming. Trading is no different. A setup does not appear by accident. It is the result of a long enough accumulation, strong enough capital flow, and a market psychology that is tilted far enough. When everything converges, there is no need to guess. You simply act, then step away once your part is done. Beginners cannot wait because they do not see the process by which an opportunity forms. They only see price starting to move, and by then it's either too late or just a trap. The patient trader does not chase. He stands still and lets the market come to him. And as my teacher once said, if a setup is strong enough, the market will not abandon you. It will come back so you can step on the train at the right time. Later on, I stopped searching for endless opportunities. I waited for a single moment when all factors aligned, when volume surged, when structure broke, when silence turned into movement. Each time I took only one trade, but with complete clarity. No excessive expectations, no greed, no fear. Because I knew that this was the reward for those who know how to wait. Once I asked him, if you only trade a few times a year, how do you survive? He laughed, but didn't answer right away. He stood up, went inside, and brought out an old notebook. He opened it to a single page. First quarter, good breakout, 10R, enough to live for 4 months. I stood there in silence. Just one trade, yet a return far beyond the long chains of red and green trades I used to make. He didn't need to trade every day. He only needed one moment when the market revealed its hand and the calm to act decisively. But what I respected most was not just his trading skill, it was his way of thinking about money. He didn't live or die by each trade. He had his own streams of passive income, a few rental properties, some dividend-paying stocks, and a few automated investments that required almost no attention. He said, "I don't need the market to feed me. I only let it reward me when the timing is right."
Trading alongside him was never pressure. It was a reward for days spent observing long enough and for patience that ran deep. Once a trade was filled, he would usually move part of the profit into a separate account, place it into savings, divide it carefully, and leave the original capital in the trading account. Most of the remaining time, he lived. He read. He tended his plants. He wrote in his journal. Only occasionally did he open the charts, just to look. There was no obsession with entering trades, no fear of missing out, no impulsive positions after sleepless nights. I slowly realized there are two kinds of traders. One lives dependent on every mouse click, opening the platform in the morning, eyes bloodshot by night. The other lives off a few trades that truly matter and steps away from the market once enough is enough. My teacher belonged to the second kind, and I began to understand that real freedom is not about how much money you have, but about having the right not to trade every day just to survive. His quarterly trades were not luck. They were the result of 3 months of observation, journaling, and waiting for the right moment. The market has never lacked waves, but those who live off waves are not the ones who dive in the moment the surface ripples. That is why every trade he placed felt like a ritual. No rushing, no haste, no trembling hands. Everything had already been prepared, calculated in advance, and his mindset belonged to someone who had learned to stand outside the noise. Once he said to me, "The market won't kill you. It's the emotions that come from staying in the market too long that make you pull the knife on your own wallet." I have never forgotten that sentence. After everything I learned from him, there was one thing that completely changed the way I see trading. Trading is not something you must do every day. It is something you should do only when it is truly necessary. Do not let yourself be pulled into the vortex of charts, emotions, impulsive actions, and regret. If you want to last in this profession, you need to learn 3 things. First, learn how to stay out. Being out of the market is not retreat, it is a conscious choice. Waiting is not passive, it is conserving energy for a moment that is worth it. Second, choose a single setup that you truly understand. You don't need to be good at everything. You don't need 10 patterns, 30 indicators, or strategies from expensive courses. You need just one thing, something you have personally seen repeat itself many times in real life. Sharpen it until it is precise. Then wait patiently for the one moment that it appears. Third, separate yourself from money. Do not look at your account as your lifeline. Build passive income elsewhere so that each time you trade, you are no longer haunted by the need to win. Because only when your mind is no longer suffocated by financial pressure can you see the market with clear, undistorted eyes. I know this is not easy, because I too have stumbled, broken down, and stood back up many times just to keep walking forward. But if you're listening to these words right now, start with something very simple. Sit down, open your trading journal, look back at the best trades you've ever taken, and ask yourself why you traded so well in those moments. Then write it down. That is your own formula. You may not need anything more scientific than that. And if tonight you don't trade, don't do anything at all, if you simply listen to this podcast like a friend sitting beside you with a cup of hot tea, then for me, that is already enough. Because perhaps just one small idea, one short sentence will help you stay a little clearer on this thorny but deeply worthwhile path. In the end, trading is not a game of winning and losing. It is not a race to prove who is better. It is a journey to understand yourself so deeply that when you stand before a high-risk decision, you can remain calm and act like a skilled craftsman, not a desperate gambler. My teacher once said, "If the market is where waves are born, then a trader's inner world is the boat. The one who survives is not the one who controls the waves, but the one who keeps himself from capsizing when the storm arrives." I don't hope you become rich very quickly. I only hope you become someone who no longer lets the market pull you by the nose. Maybe today you don't need to understand everything. But if one day, after a streak of losses or after an unexpected win, you remember a passage from this video and it makes you pause for a few seconds before your next decision, then perhaps what I wanted to share has reached you. And if you feel that videos like this can help your journey, think of them as evening tea sessions between you and me. No shouting, no advertising, no display, just real experience from someone who has sat before red and green candles for a long time, just like you. Thank you for staying until the end. And if you feel there is something here worth sharing, let it reach someone else. Perhaps like you, they too are in need of a voice, a single sentence to keep them from letting go in a market full of storms. Thank you for walking this path with me. I am Quiet Trading. I am always here, not to make you better, but to help you understand yourself more.